Our proposal interprets the current installation island as a tabula rasa, a blank slate, providing us with a platform to consider how we can build a better future. In response to this idea, the intervention consists of 5 different spaces for thinking and 1 for discussion. The 5 rooms surrounding the discussion room comprise spaces which encourage visitors to slow down and reflect in different ways. Each of the spaces is without an explicit agenda. The spaces themselves promote the generation of ideas rather than represent them. Here, visitors are afforded the opportunity to escape provocative news feeds, propaganda, cultural and social agendas, or even the rest of the Biennale itself. The journey culminates in the discussion room, where people can voice their opinions and add to the noise that currently surrounds Britain, with its issues of political polarisation, Brexit, the Windrush scandal, and Grenfell, just to name a few. The 5 surrounding spaces encourage visitors to mull over their thoughts and introspectively think and reflect, in the hope that once they return to the everyday noise of the discussion room, they've gained a deeper clarity of thought, therefore allowing them to be more adept at promoting and discussing their ideas. The major difficulty with this particular design project was the practicalities of transporting all the materials and tools on the plane, as the budget didn't allow for any other transportation options. This straight away meant we had to adhere to strict dimensions, weight limits, and due to the high cost of hold luggage, the reality of roughly half our budget being spent on baggage, leaving minimal funds for other materials. Understanding these restrictions from the outset meant we were able to successfully refine our concept and strip back our design, reducing the number of additional materials, the amount and therefore the cost of timber, and the number of hold bags. The next major consideration was how to package the materials to keep within the weight limits, but also allowing for efficiency when unpacking, as the whole frame had to be initially put up within 60 minutes. Lots of work was done to calculate the exact number of timber battens, joints, screws, and the number of any extra materials required for each space. A construction manual was also drawn up for each room. We were able to evenly distribute the weight of the timber between 2 packages and stored the joints, screws, extra materials and tools within 3 remaining suitcases. Due to the unexpected weight of some of the tools required, we had to use an extra suitcase than initially allowed for. This took us over budget by £50 once the total expenses were calculated.
As a group, our intention was to establish an intervention that reflects the themes island, free space and mutability within the British Pavilion. We worked alongside Professor of Drawing Sian Bowen and other individuals including BA third year students as well as MArch 2 students to develop an engaging workshop that was inclusive for all. We drew on the theme Drawing Boundaries, Folding Islands to create our own AUB island within the pavilion. The day was a great success and engagement with the projects went beyond all our expectations. For us, it was motivating to see how, as the rooms transformed throughout the day, so too did the visitors. The way that people moved through the space radically changed. The manipulation of the spaces made the work become a performance piece that was continuously evolving and causing evolution itself.
Room 0 was designed to create discussion with the people who are visiting and interacting with the space. The cube was designed as an area where people could put their thoughts anonymously, relating to the questions we had printed onto our 6 t-shirts, or really whatever came into their mind relating to Britain as a whole. The design of the cube relates to the theme of boundaries by creating its own island where the strings are woven and the luggage tags hang. The thoughts of people are written on the tags, which are attached with string back to the cube, with their comments demonstrating the diversity in Britain. The string represented people and culture and how everybody is on their own path, but they can intertwine with each other and cause the person's direction to change.
An entrance, an exit. Room 0 was the best room for representation of free space, island and mutability ideas. The room space was empty, but not free. Half of its floor was covered with drawings and the brain installation. Display works created border for visitors. Bodies performed around the created borders by engaging with the drawing workshop, writing text, and display work. Everybody in the space, even the space itself, was performing, changing, moving in and out. In some point, drawings overflowed throughout the stairs of the pavilion, and room 0 extended. Later on, drawings are taken away from the floor and it becomes empty. At the end of the day, each person from different ages and cultures left their drawings, tags with ideas, footsteps, and energies in the space. In return, they did take away its atmosphere, memories, joy, and ideas with them. Were there enough space for drawings or installations nor visitors to perform? Maybe not. However, there was enough art, architecture, communication, kindness, and room for everybody in Zero.
In an age obsessed with speed, production and noise, Room 1 aims to create a calming atmosphere that invites the public to rest. As much of our pessimism can stem from an inability to understand a situation, the design invokes a certain stillness to help people clarify their thoughts. Following the initial introduction to the workshop and the theme of Brexit, the public will enter this first reflection room with many ideas, perhaps in a restless state of dubiety. We hope to clarify these thoughts by installing a sense of calm and optimism within the visitors. To achieve this, a plain white fabric delicately drapes over a simple frame. This is positioned against one wall only to subtly change the geometry of the room and soften the space. Freely movable stools are situated around the room for people to sit wherever they choose. The orange-yellow artificial light glows onto the natural timber floor, together creating a warm feel to the space.
The designer's intention may have been better placed as its own exhibition or relocated. The noise and chaos of both the workshop and the projection room transformed this space, gave it a sense of isolation from the remaining rooms within the installation. The soft free-flowing fabric became lost in a mini breakout space from the workshop. The lack of lighting made the installation go unknown and became hidden within the chaos of the day, resulting in a room shifting from the desired calmness and stillness to a much more lively and energetic space. The designer's intention could have been achieved by considering its location and chosen materials through more thorough material explorations and investigation.
In this room, we first considered encouraging reflection by visually representing recent events in British history. We felt that using distorted images to hint at controversial topics would help provoke reflection on the theme of Brexit and the state of Britain today. We considered the movement of people through the British Pavilion and the practicalities of the projector. The design became a tunnel which people could pass through while still being absorbed in the video. We aimed to create an immersive environment that differentiated itself from the other rooms through its use of light, sound and texture.
The tunnel form allowed 2 videos to be played at once, with a projection from either side. We refined the videos to depict the construction and deconstruction of British buildings. The juxtaposition of construction and deconstruction suggests that there is always a positive and a negative, as both images are always seen together. For the Venice Biennale, we feel we were able to produce a highly atmospheric space that was visually effective and represented the overall theme of reflection. By demonstrating the devastating impacts of fire and contrasting it against the positive construction of the new, we communicated the duality of life in Britain. The key message is that Britain cannot avoid negative circumstances, but it is through our ability to rally together and rebuild hope that we succeed as a nation.
Room 2 was designed to be a tunnel formed through a combination of the timber frame and the layers of detail paper to create a screen for the projection of videos. Each side of the frame had differing projections which would cause the visitor to be encompassed by a combination of both construction and destruction. The end result was a strong juxtaposition of jarring imagery that the viewer would be encapsulated within. However, it became apparent that the majority of people walked around the tunnel and not through it. When asked, the visitors said that they felt a little claustrophobic and were reluctant to pass through it for this reason. Despite the fact that some people did not occupy the space as we had envisioned, it was interesting to find that these people were engaged with the projection onto their own bodies and the shadows that were cast as a negative on the walls of the tunnel.
The design of Room 3 was originally done with the intention of housing the fine art workshop and art installation, so the frame was kept very simple in here, creating free space to allow for this to happen. The form of the door was extrapolated through the room twice using the white frame, which had the intention of pulling people straight through the space. However, white tape was planned to be used on the floor to contradict this simple direction of the frame, creating new boundaries using the floorscape which were to be populated with the fine art drawings. These would therefore create mini islands and boundaries within the space, forcing people to deviate from the simple path created by the frame to meander through the fine art installation and workshop before continuing on to the next room.
Room 3 had always been the most controversial of all the rooms. At a late stage, the decision was made that the workshop would not occupy Room 3. Nevertheless, the team took this in their stride and moved the proposed workshop into the more suitable Room 0. Despite this late alteration to the programme, Room 3 still resounded as a backdrop to the workshop. Ryan and the third year students seized the opportunity to set up in this room and create a workshop in their own right. It was as if the space had met its brief as a stage for the workshop, but for clients that the team hadn't predicted. The way that the visitors moved through the space was different to how the group had anticipated. Although this is not a negative remark, it's an interesting outcome that the group played on throughout the course of the day. The group continuously manipulated the direction of travel through the room, learning as they were going. This meant that when the visitors were walking alongside the frame, they were then able to alter the space, causing them to walk through it instead.
Room 4 aimed to reflect a controversial topic being discussed, Brexit. Brexit has distorted views of the future of Britain and created confusion on the direction in which the country is heading. The frame responded to this by having two routes dividing the space, one through a simple doorway into the next room and the other a pathway, ultimately leading to nowhere, to subtly distort visitors' journey through the space. The doorway architecturally reflected Britain entering a new threshold, a new political era. The simplicity of the doorway was suggestive, leaving it open for visitors to interpret its significance any way they liked. The alternative route encouraged people to pass through the door threshold, signifying another intimation that Brexit has happened, and people need to support this decision to move forward.
This room was highly effective for its minimal intervention into the existing space. The use of a simple but recognisable object of the door holds many connotations that encourages you to really think about what the design was trying to do. Offsetting the created door frame from the door frame of the exhibition space was very clever. This made the designer's intention to dislodge the occupant on their journey clear. Although I feel this effect could have been intensified by creating a more disjointed journey to the next room, instead of highlighting what was almost the quickest path. But in some ways this provided a new effect and possibly suggested Brexit to be pointing us to an easier future. This room is successful for its openness. It doesn't lead you to an answer but instead asks numerous questions through its subtle suggestions, causing you to become more confused and more interested in the topics of the workshop as a result.
Room's 5 design intention and focus was to create a physical reflection. Early discussions revolved around creating a final space where people could stand, sit, observe and reflect on their journey and gather their thoughts, which could later be discussed within the central room. The design was to be as simple as possible, provide plenty of room for circulation to occur and allow people to feel comfortable within this space. By centralising the mirror allowed us to create a completely free space which users could pass through and occupy.
The initial plan was to have a clear reflective surface to produce a perfect reflection, but what we got instead was a distorted reflection. This made the space more interesting as people were engaging in it more, as they also discovered that the surfaces were slightly transparent. The whole blurry effect was intriguing to many visitors as they were not sure what to make of it. One couple spent minutes there trying to get the perfect reflection as they stared at each other through the mirror.